David was 78 years old when he died. He had worked his entire adult life, saved carefully, lived modestly, and built a net worth of $1.4 million. He had 2 adult children. His daughter was 51. His son was 48. They inherited roughly $600,000 each. His daughter used her share to pay off her mortgage 23 years in. His son invested his in a brokerage account he checks every morning. Here is the part David never knew. His daughter spent 15 years making extra mortgage payments while her kids were young, skipping vacations, declining job opportunities because moving with a mortgage felt impossible. His son had passed on a business partnership at 40 because he lacked capital. Both made financial decisions shaped by not having a cushion. Decisions they cannot reverse. The money arrived. It just arrived 25 years too late. David was not a bad father. He followed the plan almost everyone follows. Build wealth, protect it, pass it on when you die. What nobody told him was that this plan, executed perfectly, can still fail. When would the money have actually changed things for your children? When they were 25 and needed a down payment. When they were 32 and wanted to start a business. When they were 38 and one medical bill from derailing everything, or at 51 when the mortgage was almost paid off anyway. If you gave strategically during your lifetime, not everything, not recklessly, but deliberately, would your children have built more wealth and more freedom? There is a name for this approach, the art of living inheritance. By the time this video ends, you will understand the tax math, the behavioral economics, and the family strategy. Why giving money at 25 may be the most financially powerful thing you can do, and why dying with a full account is a missed opportunity with a very specific price tag. The standard wealth transfer plan in America works like this. You accumulate, you protect, you die, your estate distributes. It is orderly, it is simple, and it ignores the time value of money. Consider what $50,000 does at different ages. Given to a 25-year-old with a 40-year investment horizon at 7%, that $50,000 grows to approximately $750,000 by 65. The recipient has 4 decades for compound growth to work. Given to a 50-year-old with a 15-year horizon, that same $50,000 grows to approximately $138,000. Still meaningful, but not $750,000. The mathematical difference between giving at 25 versus 50 is not incremental. It is roughly $600,000 on a single $50,000 transfer, assuming the recipient invests it, which is a behavior question we address later. The median value of assets received through inheritance in the U.S. is between $100,000 and $200,000 per heir. Apply the same compounding math. The gap is not a rounding error. It is the difference between a dramatically different financial life and a moderately better one. Most people who receive inheritances in their 50s are already past the major financial leverage points. The mortgage is largely paid. The business was or was not started. The kids went through college funded or not funded. career choices made under whatever financial pressure existed at the time. An inheritance at 55 often has nowhere powerful to go except an already established brokerage account. An inheritance at 25 lands when almost every major financial lever is still unset. What is the actual goal of the transfer? A lump sum after you're gone, or to maximize the impact of your wealth on their lives? Because if it is the second one, the timing question has a very different answer. Before getting into strategy, be precise about what the IRS actually allows, because most people dramatically underestimate their annual gifting capacity. The annual gift tax exclusion for 2024 is $18,000 per recipient. You can give $18,000 to any individual, child, grandchild, child, spouse, without triggering any reporting requirement and without touching your lifetime exemption. This is not a loophole. It is the explicit structure Congress built into the tax code. A married couple can give $36,000 per recipient per year because each spouse can separately apply their own annual exclusion. Over 10 years, a married couple with 2 adult children can transfer $720,000, $360,000 per child, completely tax-free under annual exclusions alone. No gift tax return, no reduction of the lifetime exemption. On top of annual exclusions, there are 2 categories of direct payments outside the gift tax system entirely. Medical expenses paid directly to a healthcare provider, unlimited and not counted as gifts. Tuition paid directly to an educational institution, also unlimited, not counted as a gift. These 2 exclusions are among the most underused wealth transfer tools available to American families. A grandparent paying a grandchild's college tuition directly to the university transfers that value completely outside the gift tax system, does not reduce the annual exclusion, and does not touch the lifetime exemption. The lifetime exemption for 2024 stands at $13.6 million per individual. For most American families, the combination of annual exclusions and direct payments is more than sufficient to execute a meaningful living inheritance strategy without approaching the lifetime exemption. For higher net worth families, the exemption provides substantial additional capacity. What matters is that the ordinary American family has far more legal gifting capacity than they realize, and most of it goes unused. The question is not whether you can afford to give strategically. The question is whether you have thought carefully enough about when giving creates the most impact. If you are going to give money strategically, understand where money creates the most leverage, because not all giving is created equal. The first major leverage point, the down payment on a first home, the single largest financial barrier young adults face in building long-term wealth. The median home price has reached levels where saving 20% takes most young adults a decade or more. Every year spent renting instead of owning is a year of equity accumulation that does not happen. A parent who provides a down payment at 27 removes a barrier that would cost 10 years of delayed ownership and compounding equity. The second leverage point, capitalization for an entrepreneurial venture. Business formation in your 20s and 30s is statistically the most productive time. Failure recovery is faster. Risk tolerance is higher. Opportunity cost is lower. The most cited barrier to young entrepreneurship in survey after survey is lack of startup capital. A modest infusion at the right moment can alter the trajectory of an entire career. The third leverage point: elimination of high-interest consumer debt early in adult life. Student loans, credit card balances, and car loans at the outset of a career are not just expensive. They shape behavior. A young adult carrying $20,000 in consumer debt is making career decisions under a shadow of constraint. Removing it changes what is possible, not just what is affordable. The fourth leverage point: emergency fund establishment. One of the most consistent predictors of long-term financial stability. Young adults who enter their 30s with no financial cushion make systematically more conservative decisions because every financial choice is made against a backdrop of fragility rather than resilience. Each of these leverage points has a window. The window for a first home down payment is roughly 25 to 35. The window for business capitalization is roughly 25 to 40. The window for eliminating early career debt is as soon as possible. These windows do not stay open, and the inheritance that arrives at 55 finds none of them. But before we get to how you build this strategy, there is one uncomfortable thing most parents prefer not to think about. The practical reason most people do not implement a living inheritance strategy is not tax complexity. It is not the fear of running out of money. It is the conversations that living inheritance requires. Giving money to adult children during your lifetime means talking about money, specifically about your money, their needs, the purpose of the gift, and the expectations attached. Most American families are extraordinarily uncomfortable with this. A 2019 Merrill Lynch study found that 73% of adults find it easier to talk about sex, drugs, and death than money. This discomfort creates a specific and well-documented failure mode in living inheritance. Parents who give without clarity, children who receive without context, and outcomes that satisfy nobody. The child does not know whether this is a loan or a gift, whether strings are attached, whether siblings receive the same amount, or whether the parent is now financially vulnerable. The solution is not a complicated legal structure. It is a conversation, direct, specific, and documented. First, the purpose of the gift should be stated explicitly, not assumed, not implied, stated. Whether it is a gift or a loan should be unambiguous. If it is a loan, write a promissory note, not because you plan to collect, but because clarity protects the relationship. Sibling equity should be addressed directly. If you are giving to one child and not others, name this explicitly rather than keeping it quiet. Rather than keeping it quiet and hoping nobody notices, resentment that tends to surface at the worst possible moment, which is usually after you die. The parent's financial security must be confirmed before any significant transfer. No amount of strategic giving justifies transferring assets you will need for your own health care, housing, and basic living. The conversation with your children should include an honest statement of what you are keeping and why, so that the gift is received as generosity rather than a concerning sign about the parent's judgment. These conversations are uncomfortable precisely because they require being specific about money. Within families that have spent decades treating money as something not discussed directly, but the families who have these conversations create something more durable than a wealth transfer. They create financial literacy, shared values, and a family culture around money that tends to persist across generations. None of this works if it is not financially sustainable for the giver. So let's be precise about what dying broke on purpose actually means and what it does not. It does not mean liquidating your retirement accounts and giving the money away. It does not mean compromising your health care coverage or your housing security. It does not mean making transfers that leave you dependent on your children for your own care. What it means for most American families is a deliberate annual gifting program, transferring a portion of your appreciating assets each year to your heirs while those assets are smaller, rather than waiting until you die and transferring them when they are larger and potentially more complex. A 70-year-old with $1.5 million in a taxable estate who makes no lifetime transfers will pass that estate to 2 children at death. If it has grown to $2 million by death at 82, the money arrives. The children are in their late 50s. The window for maximum leverage closed a decade ago. The same 70-year-old who begins an annual gifting program of $36,000 per year per child transfers $720,000 over 10 years at zero gift tax cost. Each transfer lands when the recipient is in their 40s, still within multiple financial leverage windows. The remaining estate at death is smaller, simpler to administer, and has been accompanied by the living parent's context, intention, and personal relationship. The behavioral research on this is consistent. Inherited wealth received as a lump sum after death is more likely to be consumed or poorly invested than wealth transferred during the giver's lifetime with explicit purpose and relationship context. The presence of the parent during the transfer creates a different psychological frame, one in which the money carries meaning, not just value. Dying broke on purpose is not impoverishment. It is the deliberate conversion of stored wealth into active impact during the years when impact is still possible, while maintaining sufficient reserves for your own security and health. The difference between this and the default plan is not one of sacrifice. It is one of timing, intention, and a willingness to have the conversations that make it work. The question is not whether you can afford to do this. The question is whether you can afford not to if what you actually care about is the well-being of the people you are planning to leave the money to anyway.